Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. This is Becoming Relentless, and I am your host, Noa McCabe, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host,
Danielle Kissenberger.
Woohoo! And if you can't tell already, if you're not watching on YouTube, which you should be, we have a very special guest with us today. We are here with
Alexa, Rukstela, just Lexa.
Alexa.
Repeat guest.
Yes.
I feel so special.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, you are a repeat guest because we've had her on previously when we were first getting started
That
with
was
the pod.
What, like 2 months in? We were like very new.
Yeah.
It's like March.
Yeah. We were still figuring it out.
I think it was March.
It was March. Because we had that posing seminar too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Time
absolutely flies.
Yeah. It's about to be March again.
It is.
But that was a good podcast. Like the actual episode, if you go back and listen, you're going to hear a lot of like awkward pauses just because we were new.
We were just sitting there like, yep.
Who's going to say something next? All the eyeballs looking around.
Yeah.
That was me at least. But that was a learning episode. I feel like that was one of our first really providing like knowledge over the topic and not just what are macros?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of DMs from the people that were like resonating with the like feminine masculine stuff. So I love that like we had like the space to open up a conversation like that, because it is still like a year ago it was more like, like are we gonna talk about this thing? And I feel like people are opening up and like warming up to it now, which is really cool. Like that makes me so happy to see.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember last time, just like what you said, there was times we would be timid to say something just because of the time frame it was within the industry or life, like being the masculine and feminine energy. But now it's grown so much.
Yeah.
It's an open window, open
I feel
book.
like the past year, people have really like opened up to being a bit more soft and like welcoming in rest and introspection and like doing like the actual inner work, not like the fake inner work where you're like, I'm just gonna like write down 5 gratitudes, say that I'm doing the work.
Check it off the box.
Yeah.
Did the thing.
Did the thing. And I feel like that kind of like leads us into the episode that we want to do today, because it is kind of like the way that people talk about like cycle syncing is they make it like full blown rest. It's like the pendulum swings in the other direction. So I think that's the really cool thing about like what's changed from like a year ago when everyone was like hardcore everything.
Yeah.
And now into the like softening.
It is. It's very interesting, but it's exciting to watch because I feel like I don't want to say it's just a group. It's like many industries I feel like are changing to be softer and more accepting of and everything in general. And it's allowed industries to kind of come together as well. Like the health, holistic, the bodybuilding, all of it. So.
Yeah. It helps me not see everything in a vacuum so much anymore. Because like my background was very much like the hardcore everything all the time. Everything needs to be science-based. You need a research piece behind all of it. And now it's like, what happens if you blend like the seen with the unseen? What happens then? Like we don't know. We have to find out.
Yeah. Experiment. What is it? Evidence. Like just, I think that's part of kind of with people who are getting into coaching and they want their new coaches. They don't have like lots of athletes under them, so they don't have the experience. They just have whatever the knowledge of the book says. But I feel like a great part of becoming a good coach is just practice with athletes, because some things are going to work, some things aren't, even if they're taught. Just pin it on the person. Yeah.
And being willing to almost experiment in that way, because maybe you've been led or taught a certain way. But if you can open yourself up to trying new things with your new perspective, like especially as a new coach, you might find a new method or like your way of doing things that actually ends up working better. So it's all an experiment, which I love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's dive into cycle syncing. I'm excited because I'm familiar. Obviously, I'm educated, but I'm not as you're going to teach me a lot. I'm not as educated as you on this subject and topic. And so it's just going to be a lot of, I like to learn through the podcast from other like individuals' experiences. And like I said, who you've worked with on this matter. So it's going to be exciting to dive in with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
So for people listening, if they don't know what we're talking about, how would you explain cycle syncing or define it maybe?
Yeah, I think the way that cycle syncing is commonly known right now is more like, I'm going to build my life around my menstrual cycle. Like, I'm going to change my food. I'm going to change my training. I'm going to change like what I work on in myself based on like where I'm at in my cycle, and have like a love, not so much love relationship with that concept, because I can see people taking it in a direction where it's like, oh, like because I'm in my cycle, I can expect this thing to happen. It's almost like a reverse manifesting kind of thing, where you manifest that you're weaker or not able to do things because of your cycle. Whereas I see cycle syncing as something where it's like, oh, like you can use this as like a tool to help you like go with your life. It's more of like an intuitive process of going like with your life, like syncing your life with your cycle instead of like your cycle controlling you or you controlling your cycle.
That was a great way to put it. One thing when you were talking about that I know that each of you will relate to is, as a bodybuilder, especially in prep, you don't get a choice. And when we are like in the beginning of the industry's kind of evolvement, I feel like you said, it was just very hardcore. You have to be super strict. So you don't get a choice if you want to sync your cycle or listen to your body. But now that things are evolving and opening up towards being more in tune with who you are, but also what your body's telling you, you're able to kind of choose and pick, do I want to work with my body at this moment? Do I want to listen to it? Do I want to feed it what it needs in order to thrive in this part of my cycle? So it's exciting to be able to tap into that new connection with yourself.
Yeah, I love what you said there about like you don't really get a choice. And I think with that, like feeling like you don't have a choice and still all of these things are happening, like maybe you actually don't feel great on the first day of your cycle. Like maybe you actually would like maybe like 20 more minutes of sleep a day. But if you don't have that option, it's like it leaves you between like a rock and a hard place, because you're like, well, I have to do this thing and this thing is simultaneously happening, which breaks the relationship between you and your menstrual cycle, which I think is the beautiful thing about cycle syncing, is it kind of like sheds a nice light on that piece, instead of it being this like horrible thing that makes you weak and, you know, you need to just like shut up and not talk about it. It's like, oh, like you can actually work this into your life and make it an ally. But I think that we've swung a little bit too far in the fitness space of like, I've seen reels where it's like, I'm only in the gym for 2 weeks out of the month, and then like my luteal phase and my menstrual phase, you won't catch me in the gym. And I'm like, really? That's a really interesting way to do that. Like I'm curious if your body actually wants that, or if it's more of this like, oh, I was told I should rest, so I'm not going to do anything.
And your mental health. Because if you know for a fact, getting into the gym at least a couple times around the week, like that's going to help you mentally. So I have seen a lot of reels like that too.
Sometimes I can't tell if it's a joke or if it's for real. You know what I mean? Like I can't tell if they're posting it like making fun of cycle syncing, or if they're posting it actually believing that for 2 weeks out of the month, like women can't go train or go move their bodies. So I almost take it as a joke, because I don't want to take it seriously, because I'm like, does anyone actually really believe in that like we cannot train or we can't push our bodies or even like just continue along the program that we were, you know?
Yeah, I've actually been in some groups where they do teach it that way, where it's like, oh, like you want to have like this time for full rest. And I think that kind of comes down from, again, like not having a good relationship with your cycle in the first place. So when it does come and then you have all of these like negative side effects, which are, you know, like common, like you're bloated and you don't feel good and you're crampy and you don't want to do anything, like those things are common, but they're not normal. So if that's like what's happening in the majority of society, like of course you don't really want to go train. So of course if someone's saying like, oh, like you can rest and that feels common and normal, then maybe like you do want to take that at some point. But I don't think that it needs to be the only direction. I think that these are all just, again, like signals. It's biofeedback that we use, and then we can see what the body's actually asking for through that route.
I agree. So I had my first cycle after prep this past week, and it was way worse craving wise and like everything wise than it has ever been. And I think I have this belief, I haven't had done any research, but your first cycle back after your prep, I feel like is one of the worst ones, because you forgot what it feels like to go through a cycle. And then it's here and it's like when your first breakup happens, like you don't know how to handle it. This has been so long. So I think perfect timing for me.
Yeah. Can relate.
Yeah.
I like to see like your menstrual cycle kind of as like your report card for the month. So it's like how did you rest this month? Like how were your hormones? Like what did you do this month? And like how is your body kind of like feeding back to you? Okay, like what's going well, what's not going well? Because like I said, like bloating and like not feeling good, having really intense cramps where like you can't get out of bed in the day. Like I've heard that from a lot of women. It's really sad. Like those things are yes, like common, and we have memes about them, so it seems normal, but it's not. Like, and I feel like that's where the issue comes in, because it feels like, well, of course, if you're in that situation, you don't want to do anything. Like I understand that. I'm not trying to take that away from people and say like you should just like push through it and not listen to your body. Like no, like we're not looking at either of those sides. It's more like finding this nice middle ground to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you say that it's common but not normal, what do you mean by that?
So cycles actually aren't supposed to hurt. They're not supposed to hurt. They're not supposed to like make you this like PMS monster that we talk about in society. And I think that that's also just from like one of our previous episodes, people having this very like broken relationship to the feminine and all that stuff. And I'm not going to go too much into that, promise. But
if you want to, again.
But I lost my train of thought. Rip. It doesn't have to be that way. It's more like your body is sending you these pain signals because like something is wrong. Like there is something that isn't optimized or functioning normally in the body. So it's sending you this is like, hey, excuse me, something's wrong, like acne and bloating and like tenderness and really harsh, heavy, painful periods. Again, like you're not supposed to be in pain for 25% of your life for the first 30 to 40 years of your life. That's not, let's not normalize that.
That's a good way to put it. The percentages.
Yeah.
That was a good way I haven't thought about the percentages of how much we're in our period and our lifetime.
Yeah, that's a lot. I feel like as a competitor, and because we are so young, like I guess I'll speak from my experience, like I don't get a regular period because I prep all the time and I lose it. Like my body's very sensitive with that. But then when it's coming back, kind of like what Dee said, that first period back usually is a lot worse for me. Do you think that's because like I went from having all these variables and like being very active, like eating a certain kind of diet, to usually post show, like you enjoy yourself a little bit, and like your hormones that were downregulated, maybe they're coming back online? Is that why you think maybe like the first one back would be more painful?
I would say based on that, if you're looking at like what the cycle does, like why do we have a cycle? It's so we can procreate, live long and prosper, all that other fun stuff. And if the body is not feeling safe enough to have a cycle, that means it's like, hey, it's not a good environment for us to bring more life into this world. So if like it's looking at your situation, like, okay, like we're not having a lot of food coming in, we're sick, we're traveling, all of these like not like maybe good things if you're trying to conceive, then it might pull back on those things. Or like if it is actually having a cycle, then it might be like a really uncomfortable one because it wasn't too sure, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I feel like I said earlier, I think 100% on that. But since it was so long since I knew how to deal with the mental shifts and the cravings, and you have to teach yourself again how to assess and be calm and not be focused on your cravings or combat everything that's occurring. But like you said, it shouldn't be as painful. So getting your body into a healthy place, it'll get better.
Yeah. And I love that too, what you said about like the cravings and like the slight like emotionality and sensitivity. Like I think those are amazing and superpowers. Like those are so cool. Like I was similar to you. I came off birth control about 6 months ago now. And when I first like started cycling again and like actually having like quote unquote like PMS symptoms, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really intense. And then like the more cycles I've had, I've noticed that like my PMS and my irritability and all of these things that are coming up for me, they're not misplaced. Like they're not invalid. It's not like I'm just like showing up with these things that don't actually matter to me. And now I'm all of a sudden sensitive to them. It's like I actually didn't like these things were happening like 3 weeks ago. And now it's like because everything's heightened and I am more sensitive, I can notice like, oh, like a boundary needs to be set or this thing actually isn't serving me. So I almost like use my PMS like luteal phase as like that time to like really see like what is working for me and what is not. Cause it's like, it's clear as day when you really listen to it.
Yeah. That is interesting. A different perspective with the boundaries. I love that. I do feel like, and I think y'all relate as females because you have cycles. There's a period within the cycle, usually at the end, where I start to do more like self-realization and reflection. And you kind of understand where you want to put your boundaries or things that are occurring. So I used to have like eating disorder, and I was like, man, my cravings are so bad right now. This has taken me back to some of the feelings that I used to have. But I know I'm not in the same place with the eating disorder. I know it's because of the period and cycle. And now that I ended it, I realize like, no, I'm fine. Like, everything's calmed down. So I feel way better.
Yeah.
But I do understand that food is a sense of comfort. When your cravings in your cycle, food is even more of a sense of comfort. So of course, with the past eating disorder, I'm going to look for food more so than probably if I thought I would, just for the sense of comfort during that time.
No, that makes sense. I like listening. But I did want to say, like, in terms of breaking down the different phases of the cycle, because I think we've talked about like the menstrual cycle, and you just mentioned like the luteal. I always say luteal, but it's luteal, right?
Every time someone says, "Oh," not every time. There will be different. Like you'll hear IG video, and then you'll hear something else, and it's like, wait a sec. Y'all said it differently. It's just like tomato kind of way. Like they'll say something that's slightly different.
And then I'm like, which way do you say it? Like, do you ever say a word in your head and then you say it with your mouth and it's different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only one that bothers me is when people say like estrogen, like estrogen. I'm like, no, it's estrogen.
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 It sounds like some like Oriental rice.
Yeah. It sounds like,
make it the estrogen.
Yeah, like a dish that I'm ordering.
Yeah.
But anyway, like breaking down the phases, I think we're talking like more energetically today. So I kind of like want to move in that direction. But like you said, towards the end of your cycle, you're feeling a little bit more self-realization and introspective. So people usually say that during your cycle, like the first half, you're really like energetic and you have lots of energy. And then as your cycle goes on, you don't have as much energy. And I don't like that terminology. Like it's like, oh, like you are energized and then half your time you're not. Like, no, it's like your energy just turns inwards and it like turns back on itself. So it's like, it's still there. You're not like, like weaker because of this. It's more like you have all of this like external energy, or like maybe you're going out and like getting after it. And then like after that, you like come back, re-strategize, see what worked, to see what didn't work. And then like literally the cycle repeats. So it's like half of it is internal, half of it is external.
I feel like I love it because we have such a tool. It's such a tool to understand it. And then you can kind of cycle sync. Exactly. Yes. You can cycle sync.
you can cycle sync in a way that serves you and doesn't hold you back from your goals or from continuing to evolve. Because to me, it almost reminds me, have you seen those things where it talks about like a constant loop versus like a spiral, like a spiral staircase versus like a loop? So we're almost, I know that that's like a cycle is like a loop, but I'm kind of thinking it now of it like a spiral staircase, because I used to think that it was holding me back. That like, oh, that time of the month when like I'm having those sad girl thoughts and I don't feel very good in my own body, like nothing fits right and you're just meh. Like I always thought, oh man, this is such a step back. But like I like what you both are saying, where instead of thinking of it in that way, you can think of it as energy that's turning inwards, and I can reflect on myself and see, okay, here's what worked, here's what didn't. And you can make like micro steps forward.
Yeah. If you think of the luteal phase, it's like, which is where the PMS symptoms, which I like to say, it's like, please make space instead of like premenstrual syndrome. Like, I feel like that's so much nicer than the way that PMS is usually used. Please make space. And each part of the cycle like builds on the next. It's not like you just have like this random thing that's not there for any reason. Like the luteal phase helps you prepare to shed properly, like shed the uterine lining during your menstrual phase. So if you think about like that, like, okay, like what do I need to shed? You need to know what you need to do before you can actually go do it. So it sets you up for that. And I feel like people have such a broken relationship with it because of the way that it's talked about in society. And like, I know like growing up, like everyone was always like talking down to me or like talking down about like women who behave this way, like they must be on their cycle. It's like, I want to bop people who say things like that. Yeah.
I know. So relating to both of what you just said, I was thinking about something similar to the experience of when you're in PMS and you feel down. Similar to you, I just was kind of frustrated and mad. Like, I don't want to be down today. Why? But that's just understanding that it's energy that's going inward, and just you in this moment, don't expect your energy to change, but just see where you can give yourself more. since it's coming inward. So again, working with your body, but understanding, this is going to be a good one for just understanding as females what your body is asking of you in that moment.
Yeah. I think understanding that like you're not weaker because you have a cycle or because you have female biology. Like it's actually a strength and it's actually a superpower. Like let's normalize that again, please.
Yeah. In what ways? So I feel like one of the biggest ways personally that we could do that is just through content, obviously, because everyone's on social media. But in what ways, when athletes come to you, y'all can both answer this, and they're struggling with PMS or like toxic thoughts during this time and they're frustrated with their cycle, what advice do you give them that allows them to kind of take steps forward or think of things in a different way?
Me?
You want to go first?
Yeah. Generally, I think when athletes come to me, it's kind of what you were speaking to, the reframe. So I just ask, well, I express my empathy because I understand. I am also a woman. So I'm like, girl, I get it. I hear you. I've been there. I keep coming back to there. But
every month I'm back there.
Yeah. Like I'm there with you. Just letting them know that it's more so, it would be more helpful for them to reframe it, like holding space for them that like, yes, you might be in a lot of pain. And if it's severe pain, at that point, I might ask moving forward, like, let's get some blood work done. Let's look at supplementation and ways that we can naturally help, because that might be a hormone or nutrition or even like switching up their training program to help them in that way. But mostly I ask them like mentally to reframe it that, hey, it's not a detriment that you're about to get your period or that you're feeling this way. Like as competitors, I know we focus on our waist or we don't want to be bloated. We don't want to feel crampy, but it's such a short time frame that you are going to feel that way. And instead of getting in your own way and like getting frustrated, if you can just reframe it for a few days and tell yourself, this is the time to focus on yourself and give yourself that rest if you need it, it's going to be more productive in the long run.
There's something that I do for myself. I do tell my athletes this too, but during the week of my period, I give myself a hall pass of, you're not allowed to judge yourself. You're not allowed to tell yourself like you look bad. You're not allowed to like be rude to yourself, just because yes, you're going to be holding water. Yes, you're going to be a little bit more bloated, and that's okay. And usually during this time, my mindset and confidence isn't that high. It's not that it's like super low and like disgust. Like it's just, it's not as high. I'm not as, energy's not going out as much. So give yourself a little bit of a hall pass and realize that it's okay to not always have the leanest stomach all the time or as lean. And during this time, you can be nice to yourself, even if you're not feeling your best.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love those. What you just said. For me, it's more like I ask some more questions, I guess, when those kinds of things come up. So if someone's having a difficult cycle or like they're really like going through it that month, and usually when that happens, it's because we didn't meet all of the needs of the body previously. Like usually like we missed a cue or we kind of like mentally pushed past something that we probably shouldn't have, like broken a body boundary in that sense. So it's more like, like how did the previous month go for you? Like, was it really intense with your life stress? Like, was it really, really intense with training? Was it, did we push too hard here? Any of those things? And usually the answer is going to be yes. Like I honestly don't have so many girls that I need to really like kick them to go like make them work. Like it's usually I have to pull the reins back and get them to rest, which I feel like is what that phase of the cycle is kind of like asking you to do, like right before and like as you start bleeding. And this isn't like the full luteal phase and the full menstrual phase. I want to make that clear. It's like it's not like once day 18 hits, like you need to take 12 days off. Like no, it's like maybe like the like day 26 through 28, and then like 1 and 2 might be like the really intense like 5-day stretch for you. So just giving them tools to help during that time. So for example, like obviously we want to fix these things, or not fix these things. We want to make these things a little bit more livable for the next month, but that doesn't help them feeling like garbage right now. So if you do struggle with really intense like menstrual cramps or like PMS, then I recommend doing either castor oil packs, cramp bark, chaseberry tea is wonderful. Just staying warm, because if you're cold, especially like in the winter, like it is right now, like your blood kind of like doesn't want to move. It's almost like coconut oil. So it's like if your coconut oil is like cold, then it's solid. But if you warm it up, it can move easier. So just like staying warm, having a nice bath, having some nice electrolytes, all of those things. Those are usually like what I try to tell them to do in the meantime while they're still hurting.
very, very awesome. All of it.
I know.
So I'm saying, I'm learning some things. Coconut oil was a great example.
Yeah. Visual. Just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally thought about the coconut oil in my pantry.
Yeah.
It's like, I know exactly what she's talking about.
That's super interesting. I actually didn't realize that. I didn't know that like keeping yourself warm would help.
Mhm.
Question for you, and I think you'll know the answer to this. There's times within your cycle that your body temperature is increased. And then there's times that it obviously drops off. But when I'm on my period, like, dude, I'm hot. Like, there is so much heat going on.
During your cycle?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or
Because usually, from what I understand, it changes when you are ovulating. Like, and it's almost like if you look at the 4 phases, they kind of correlate with the 4 seasons. So, like, your menstrual phase is going to be like your inner winter. Your follicular phase is going to be your inner spring. Ovulation phase is going to be your inner summer when you're feeling like a sassy mamacita, like you were feeling
I
real
definitely
good.
feel that sassiness where it comes. I'm like, okay, can we stay here all the time?
Like, you are confident, you are feeling sexy. It is a great little.
I love that.
Yeah.
Vibe. I mean, how far can we push it every time? And you wake up and you're like, oh, it's done.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone has a problem with it. Not a problem, but like none of us are going to be like, oh, like those are bad times. Like, everyone's really enjoying when your energy is high and you're feeling extroverted and you can go chase after all of your goals. I feel like a lot of people have the disjointed relationship with their luteal and their menstrual phases. So the last part of that, the luteal phase, is the inner autumn, inner fall. So you can think about it kind of similarly to what you would see in the seasons when you look at the cycle pieces as well.
So you feel warmer in ovulation and then kind of temperatures drop and then, okay. Interesting. Okay. I like that. It helps me like picture it. I do feel like sometimes I get the night sweats right before my period though.
Interesting.
Yeah. That might be a hormonal thing I need to look at.
Like, maybe I should get some blood work. Same.
Definitely recommend blood work if you have any of these, like, even if you don't, like, even if you have issues, great. If you don't and you haven't done them in like 6 to 12 months, like, maybe just get them done. See what's going on. Make sure that you aren't missing any signals with your body.
I feel like there's a lot of people out there that just don't do blood work because
Yeah.
I became an athlete young, but even then, it wasn't taught until I joined, not my first coach, just Justin, my second coach, that we need to get blood work done. So I even feel like some coaches out there don't push it because they don't know how to read it.
Yeah.
But blood work is so important. Blood work is so important. Even if your coach doesn't know how to read it or you haven't gotten it because you're not with the team or you're not even an athlete, like, you should get it done.
I will say for me, like, I was scared to get it because I'm literally horrified of needles. So
What?
like I resonate if that's you too. But again, it is important just for like general health.
Oh,
We're all scared of needles,
yeah.
which is so
I saw
funny.
Noah faint once. I was like, oh,
Yeah, Dee was right there. The needle came out. I was like, oh,
there she
that's
goes. I've never seen anyone faint too. I was like, oh, it's
I
happening.
was thinking about the IV situation. We went and got rehydrated with like IV bags, and I don't know how he messed yours up,
Bro,
because
okay, so
Dee was like fresh off prep, like veins popping.
No, you know what's funny about this too? Like, you're afraid of needles, I'm afraid of blood. Anything blood, no, can't see it. Not my thing. He messed up my needle so bad. I looked down and I was like, okay, gotta look back up. Oh my gosh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yikes.
But despite us not liking blood and needles, we all still get our blood work done.
Yeah.
So
I have to take like a week break to prepare myself before going in. Yeah.
yeah, if you're scared, also, I recommend, because I pass out, laying down, have them lay you down and put your arm out. Tell the technician that you usually pass out and if they could talk to you, and then look the other way. So I just like completely just try to dissociate from what's happening and just have the conversation. And that helps.
I tell them to treat me like I'm 5.
Literally.
I'm literally sweating in there.
Yeah.
Like, I could be naked. I'm like full on sweating. Yeah.
And then I get nervous because I'm like, my cortisol reading's
Yes.
going to be off. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Deep breaths. That's funny.
It's funny because when you're driving there, you can feel it start, like your anxiety start to rise
And you're like,
as you
no,
get closer and closer.
no, not today.
No, not
we need
today.
good cortisol levels over here.
Yeah. Oh man.
If we can do it, y'all can do it. Do your blood
Trust
work.
me.
Please get your blood work done.
Yes, get your blood work done. I will do it. I'm publicly like putting myself out there. I'm going to do my blood work.
We
soon.
could all do it together.
Those poor technicians.
I know.
If we all literally did it
Yeah.
together, they're like, oh god. They all quit.
I know, man.
Oh no.
If you get your blood work done because of this podcast, please let us know though. That would be super
Yes.
important for you.
And we'll help you with it
Yeah,
too.
we'll analyze it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Free feedback. Look at that.
That's a really nice offer. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
all three of us looking over someone's blood work, like, y'all are in good hands.
You're in good hands.
For sure.
So I wanted to bring it back though.
Yeah.
We were talking about the different phases.
Yeah. Can we talk about training?
Yes. Yes.
Bring it in.
Yeah. Again, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people think that they just don't need to train during their luteal or menstrual phases. And I just want to say that that is inaccurate. And I will say that I do make training changes if I'm training during like those 5 days that I was saying. Usually it's like I only need those changes like the first 1 or 2 days because for some reason my training always falls on day 1 of my cycle. I'm just lucky like that, I guess. And I noticed for me, like the only thing, because like I said, I've been coming off birth control, so I have had more intense cycles, so I have had to make those changes. But the only things that I really change is I will kind of take out some of the spinal loading movements. Like if I have like deadlifts and my low back is already exploding, like I'm not going to do that to myself. Like why? I can just do a different movement. Like it doesn't really matter that much. Just do something else for hamstrings and glutes.
You would think that that would be common sense, but I feel like a lot of athletes, like, or just people in general going to the gym, if they have a plan written out, they will stick to it even if their lower back is already hurting.
That
Like,
whole week I take it out.
yeah.
Nothing. Honey.
Yeah.
I used
Because
to.
it makes the bloating worse too. I find if my back is inflamed from doing an RDL during my cycle, and then my digestion's even worse. Worse.
Just so much
Yeah.
tension probably.
Especially like with you have like your belt on too, because you're like bracing, it just doesn't feel nice. So for me, like if I'm having that that experience, then I will take out any spinal loading movements. And also like I will say like if it's my first day and I genuinely don't have the inclination to train, even if I have like a leg day planned and like what is the most exciting thing that feels within grasp right now. Sometimes it's cardio, which is really strange, but I'm like, all right, if you want to do cardio for 20 minutes before we get this thing going, like, let's do it. Sometimes it's like, I just want to do lateral raises and see how that feels. So like anything that can kind of like get you moving. So like whatever you're drawn to, if you're noticing that like motivation isn't high to do your specific plan on that specific day because you don't feel your best, then like, what do you want to do? Like what would be exciting for you to try and just like see how it goes. If you try one set and it doesn't feel good, is there something else? Or do you just want to go home? Like those are also options for you. Like I really don't believe in pushing your body past its like consent point. If it's like, bro, I don't want to do these things. And you're just like, sucks to be you. Like, I live in this body. I'm just going to make it do all the things that I want it to. Like, I don't believe in that.
Sucks to be you.
What if somebody doesn't have that, would you call it like awareness or like communication within their body? Like what would you suggest that they do?
So I want to say that everybody does have it. I think a lot of people don't feel like they have the permission to listen to it. And that's the thing. So it's like whenever I'm trying to teach someone these pieces, like their first thing that comes to their mind to me is right. Like if they're like, I want to do cardio, I'm like, great. Do it. Like amazing. Let's celebrate that. Let's like go with it, see where it goes, and just like literally give them all of the permission and validation that what they did was right. I feel like that's the most important piece that you can have when you're first starting. Also, I think this is really a helpful reframe. Like the body is the subtlest form of the mind and vice versa. So like if your mind is saying something, like there is a part of you that is resonating with in your body. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah.
So you can use both of them. It's not like your mind is saying something and your body is saying something else. It's like there are two parts of you that feel somewhat different, but they are in the same being. So they can still have space.
You do really good at giving examples. Like you say things in a way that the audience can paint a picture.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everything you've said, I'm like painting a picture. Coconut oil.
Yeah.
You're never going to look at coconut oil the same way.
No.
You're like, damn.
You got
Be
my
like,
blood. Yeah. That is awesome. I do love what you said about the body and the mind, though. I know that's going to stick with me when I am on my cycle, just realizing listening to your mind is also listening to your body. And I like that. I know you said you don't want to like bring this up that much, but the femininity within the cycle and all of that, and listening to and understanding that you're right. Like your body is like, you can listen to your body, have what's the word? Permission to do so. I would like to dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. This is my wheelhouse, so I really
know. When you said when you said that you didn't want to like dive in, I was like, yes, let's do it. So within the femininity and having permission to listen to your body, I feel like that's something, like I said, that's going to be talked about more and more as just time goes on, as people are opening their minds to being more vulnerable with themselves and everyone else. I would love to hear, how does one become more aware of breaking toxic boundaries that they've had with not listening to the body and creating new ones with listening to the body, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think we already kind of answered it as far as like giving yourself permission. Like what's limiting you to, or what's causing you to break those boundaries? Because they're there, and there is a part of you that does want to give that to yourself. Like there is a part, like if you had everything your way and you wouldn't lose all your gains, or you wouldn't be talked down to by your coach or seen as less than because you read that you had to do this thing a certain way on Instagram, if all of those things didn't exist and we didn't have this like conditioning of how things were supposed to be, we would already do that thing. So it's more like, what is blocking us, and is that true? Like, is that like the ultimate truth that's going to be going on right now? Because more than often, it's not true. Like what we see for content, like content is created to make you look at it. It's not created for you, which is why content is like, it's great. It's great to like think about and ponder on and see if it works for you and toss it in the trash if it doesn't. But it's not for you. Not every single piece of content is for you. So you have to go in there with that discernment and that sense of self that says like, okay, like I do know what is best for me on some level. And I'm also open to being wrong. I'm open to being right. I'm open to being wrong. I'm open to all of these possibilities. And then go experience life. Go experience it. Try it out. See if it doesn't work. And don't make any of those things mean anything about you. Because they don't.
Very insightful. And I'm going to do that as I'm scrolling too. I think with every piece of content, I kind of look at it differently. And I don't have a lot of female cycle syncing or cycle in general content. But now that I am interested, like I've voiced y'all separately on the podcast, I'm interested on eating in a way that's in sync with my cycle, just because I know that's going to help me not only nourish my body better, but also actually start eating to nourish my body in a better way and make me feel good. I've never done that before because prep bodybuilding, you eat on a plan, eat your macros. And now I'm excited to see not only like the hormones, how I'm going to feel, how the energy, the connection within myself from doing that. So I'm excited. Yeah.
I love that too, because I think one of, if the listeners really appreciated the like masculine feminine podcast that we did, like starting to listen to your cycle and getting in touch with like your cyclical nature, because that is like one of the pieces that is in the feminine box as far as like you have like the feminine masculine pieces, that is really helpful for you to like start reconnecting to your feminine energy, just making space for your cycle, for like the ebbs and the flows of things and not having everything be like linear all of the time. So I love that you're doing that for yourself, and hopefully like other people can start doing that too. As far as eating for your cycle, like I would say that there are probably like 5 things just in general across the month that you kind of want to make sure you have in there to have really comfortable cycles. That's usually going to be magnesium, iron, folate, B6, and what's one other one?
Is it potassium?
It is not potassium, but that is also a good thing to have.
Did you say zinc?
Zinc. That's what it is. Yeah. Jinx. Yeah. So like those things usually throughout the cycle, making sure you have enough of those is going to help make sure you have comfy cycles. So, and omega-3s. That was the other one too.
Ooh, I love my fish.
Yeah.
My salmon and all the
omega.
fish. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to share for accountability reasons, I'm going to share it because I'm in the transition phase of, you're off season, and you're off prep, and I've enjoyed my food, but now I'm ready to nourish my body in a different type of way and see where it takes me. So we will find out. Only good things to come.
Yes.
I
I'm
love that.
excited.
Yeah.
I love
Amazing.
that too.
And it's also kind of with the femininity side, honoring yourself in a different way. I feel like within femininity, there's so many ways that you can show yourself self-care, but there's also so many ways that you don't realize you can do that. And some of that is like, yes, you eat healthy, but do you eat healthy for that? Let me reframe. If you eat healthy, that's awesome. If you eat in a way that's making you happy, that's awesome. But for example, the next step for me to show myself self-care is eating for my cycle or my body in a different way. That's something that in the beginning of the year, I didn't realize there were so many like compartments and levels to how you can show yourself self-care in a feminine way. So this podcast will actually help me as well in that area.
I love that. And I think like with the masculine feminine piece, like I think the feminine is the one that like a lot of people are drawn towards because they're like, oh, I don't have that. I'm too hyper masculine, all of these things. And like to do that, you need to have a really safe masculine container. So it's like the feminine is like what you're experiencing and the masculine is the one that's saying like, okay, like let's go with it. Let's see how that goes. Like it gives you the permission to like go out and do the thing. So it's like you need to look at it and like see what's happening and open yourself up to the experience that you're currently having, whether that's like really high energy and feeling really good and like bouncing around, having a good time, or it's like sad girl vibes, like you were saying. So it's like you need to be able to hold all of those things and not make either of them better or worse. So it's like being like, I love you no matter like if you are bouncing off the walls and you're like your highest self, quote unquote, or if you're like crying on the floor in the corner, like I love you both ways. Does not matter to me.
See, that's the level of what I don't know the exact word that I'm looking for, but I understand what you're saying. Old me I would hear you and I wouldn't know how to apply that to my daily life because there's just levels to getting there.
Yeah,
that's like a human.
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
But I believe as a female and females listening to this, that's going to be a goal for a lot of the females that are listening to get to that point where it's not just self-love in general, it's self-love at every moment, even when you're not at your best, or maybe your best is this painted picture, but your best can look different in different stages within your month and within your cycle.
Yeah. It's more about equanimity. It's about like not being too attached to one side and then like aversive to the other. It's not like, yeah, I can't wait for my ovulation phase to get here and then like keep this bleeding phase away from me. Like I don't want anything to do with this. It's just like, oh, like this is the next phase. This is what's happening to me right now. And this is how I can best support myself moving forward. Easy peasy. In theory. And then you have all these thoughts that are like, well, I'm supposed to do this thing and my coach said that I had to do this and I have this big thing coming up at work, so like I really can't afford to have these things happen. And that's where I think the cycle syncing comes in a really helpful way because it's more like, oh, these feelings are happening instead of like these things aren't happening, just pretend they don't exist, just like shove them in a box and then they get worse and worse over time as things that you ignore tend to do.
Yeah.
You can be like, oh, like these things are happening and I have all of these things that I'm supposed to do. How can we make these things mesh? How can we allow them to coexist? And if that's like maybe giving yourself like an extra 5 minutes of sleep, do that. Like that's also a form of self-care if you need it. It's just like listening to it and seeing like, okay, like what can I do? Maybe we can't abandon all of the ships and everything that I'm supposed to do and just like be a little hermit for a week, even if that's what you want. But what's a version of that? Like what is the underlying need that's being asked for? Is it just like space? Is it just recognizing that you have something, you're like past capacity right now? Like what's the underlying thing that's being asked of you? And can you meet that in some way? Get crafty, creative with it.
I think that's like an area that I really want to improve on because I don't think I'm good at asking myself, like, what's the underlying need? I'm definitely the one that like is like, I'm going to unpack that later. I'm going to put that to the side and deal with it at a different time. But I like how you always frame it in like questions, like you're asking yourself questions and being curious towards yourself.
I think because I know you've done, based off what I've seen and like the person you are, I know you've done a lot of internal work. Like I feel like only a person, you can only understand things if you've been there. You can like describe things if you've been there, if you have the experience. I think that takes a lot of just separating kind of your identity with yourself, because in a way you're getting to know and understand yourself just like you're understanding your body. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for all of us, but because like we can all do that, that's something to all work on. But I think you're gonna find a lot of exploration in that.
Yeah, I'm excited, and it helps like being surrounded by women who are like on the same, maybe not the exact same journey, but we're on similar paths. Like we're not in the same place, but we're kind of traveling in similar directions, like parallel lines. So I'm excited to be surrounded by you guys because you guys definitely push me in a lot of ways to keep exploring and keep asking and keep digging. Like I'm not just the surface level Noa that I'm very familiar with. Like there's more underneath, and I'm excited. I'm excited to keep digging, keep going.
I think having a group that like loves you no matter what, like I know you guys are like best girlfriends over here. And it's like no matter like what you guys go through, and like same with like me to you, like anything that you experience, like I'm a root for you. Like doesn't matter. But I would love to give an example of that. I think that probably wasn't super clear about like what is the underlying need and like can we meet that if that's all right. So I think like you were talking to cravings earlier, like experiencing like I really want to have this like chips or these chocolates or whatever else it might be. And I think a lot of people like see cravings as a bad thing because it's like, oh, like I want chips, but chips aren't in my plan. So like what am I supposed to do now? And I like to break these down into like what is this food going to do for your system? You know, because like when we think about even just like pre-workout meals, you know, it's like, what is the purpose of a pre-workout meal? To help you have like kind of like fast, ready, available energy for your training. So it's like a more like stimulative type of meal. So like if you break down what types of foods would be more stimulative for you, so like coffee, dark chocolate, fast digesting rice, those kinds of things. Those are going to kind of like give you that like boost of energy that maybe you're looking for. If you're looking for like chips and like heavier, fattier foods, you're probably looking for something a little bit more like depressant, like relaxing type foods. So looking at like what you're craving and saying like, okay, like what kind of food would this fit into? Is this going to like balance my nervous system? Is this going to activate me and make me like more energetic? Is this going to help me like settle down for the day? And then if those foods don't fit in your plan, like now you know the need. You're like, oh, like I'm looking for something that's going to help me get through the workday, which is like maybe like an extra cup of coffee. But like, what is another way that I can energize myself right now? Like, what is another way that I could do that? Or I'm having trouble settling down after a really tough workday. What's a way that I could relax and ground myself into the present moment that isn't chips or that isn't that extra cup of coffee at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That does make, it's a great explanation. A lot of just insight in general to look at things in a different window or way, perspective. I'm attached to that word window for some reason. I think I've said it like 4 times since I got in here. I don't know why.
Because there's no windows in here.
I know.
You want to create one. Get me a window. Need that natural light.
Oh my gosh. So much to reflect on though and take home and just.
Yeah. I think you recently did a post on that because I was trying to think when you're talking about like stimulating versus like more calming foods maybe. Because I've always thought of cravings like with that stupid viral chart that's all over Instagram where it's like, if you're craving chocolate, you need more magnesium. Like X equals Y and this and that and this. And I'm like, well, if I want chocolate, I'm not going to go drink my magnesium. Like I just don't want that. I want chocolate. So I think your way of reframing it is really helpful. And I'm pretty sure you did a post like super recently on where the different foods fit in.
Yeah.
So I think that's just helpful if y'all are wondering as well.
Is your IG your name?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We'll have her in the bio though. And like we'll be posting her up. So yeah.
But yeah, those things are definitely like accurate too in some way. Like sometimes your body is asking you for something that it knows it gets certain nutrients from, even if it doesn't know what the word chocolate is. Like it knows what this little like weird thing that it binds all of these like enzymatic processes
like
is
chemically.
Yeah, again, like they're connected. They know what's going on. They have a little communication going. So yeah, it definitely can be like you have some type of deficiency. And if you notice that a lot, you can go on. Is it Chronometer? Do you know Chronometer, the thing that tells you if you're deficient in something? That's a great website to like plug your diet in and see if you're missing anything. But other than that, just looking at balancing, stimulating, or relaxing types foods, if that's something that you notice yourself being drawn towards, and you don't have the option to do something else. Like you don't have an option to just like eat the damn chocolate. Like if you're in prep and you notice that you want those things, like maybe you can be like, okay, like I'm looking for a way to activate me. What can I do?
Yeah.
Can I do anything? Is there anything that I can do? You know, and there usually is. Like if you're creative enough and you're like open enough to those things, not that you're not enough, but just more like if you can find something that and you're open to the answer, then you probably will.
Yeah. I'm going to check out your Instagram post.
Yeah. I think I actually have a cycle guide that I made for this purpose. So anyone who listens to it, I'm happy to send it to you. You can just message me.
Oh my gosh, a free guide.
Yeah.
You're amazing. Her guides should be sold. Like, this is very valuable. She's giving it away for free.
I feel like this is knowledge that we should have learned in school, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So like,
They just said, don't have sex.
yeah, they said don't have sex and periods
I
are
was
bad.
like, what is sex?
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Periods make people not like you. And you're like, oh, rip.
Yeah.
Should I like myself right now?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah, no. Listen to podcasts and get educated. That's the best way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, is there anything else that we didn't talk about or that you would like to talk about now?
I think like takeaway points is you can use cycle syncing as a way to help you get closer to your body, and you don't need to make it something that controls your life because you have a menstrual cycle. Like, you're not weak because you're female. Like, you are freaking strong because you're female. So let's keep that
You're stronger.
stronger.
Yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
I love that as a key point. Key takeaway. That is amazing.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
I'm so happy
Again,
to.
we'll have you again for the third time.
Yes.
Hopefully not next March.
I know. Well,
Every
Full
year.
year.
No, this one's Alexis.
Once a year.
yeah.
Oh.
That'll be amazing. But yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will catch you on the next one. Peace.